Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everybody. Well, we're not going to make this a shop update, but I want to make sure that all of you out there that are so concerned that the inside of the shop walls aren't painted have a little bit to look forward to. So we have been working on getting the wall covering up here in the shop. So I started with the wall over here by the garage door opener, or the garage door, because we're hoping that on our trip to Texas to deliver the Texas car, that we're going to be able to pick up a garage door opener, since we can't buy the one we want to buy here in California. So this wall is complete. We have started putting on some of the J channel for this wall over here and for that wall right there. But as far as the rest of the shop update, you guys are going to have to go over to the Mrs. IE427 channel and check out the shop update that we just posted this past week over there. That'll kind of give you a rundown on some of the stuff that we're doing here around the shop. As far as the Texas car is concerned, I think what I'm going to do today is work on getting the access covers taken care of for the trunk. So that's the access cover for the fuel pump and the fuel tank sending unit. We're going to get those installed in the trunk, and then probably get the access cover for the top of the driver's footbox installed. We've been waiting on those just in case there was any other stuff that we needed to take care of in those areas. I really wanted to put another 5 gallons of gas in the tank for this thing, but with gas at $6 a gallon right now, I'm waiting, because we still got a quarter of a tank of gas in here, and it doesn't make sense for me to put more gas in it, just to have it sit and go bad. So I'm probably going to wait on that, but I am going to put the access covers on. Honestly, it's only about 8 rivets per cover to get them off, but we go through every step that we go through in order to make sure that those seals, those gaskets on those 2 outlets don't leak anyway. So I think we're going to be just fine. Now, if you look at the car right here, you'll notice that the door is not on. And I'm not really tickled with having to take the doors off after Jeff had put those on and aligned them, and we had gone through and aligned them again once the body had done all its settling. You can see back here, the driver's side door is sitting on the table. We've protected that door with a towel underneath it, so it's not going to get scratched up. But the reason that I had to pull the door off is because these trim pieces that we have never used here in the IE427 garage had to be installed. And with the hinge in place, I could not get enough access to get in there to trim these trim plates. And yes, you do have to trim them. Now, in all fairness, I did not get instructions with these. That's not to say that they didn't come with instructions, and I'm not throwing the car owner under the bus, but in all the paperwork I got from him, I did not find any instructions to mount these. I figured they were pretty self-explanatory. You fit them in place, you put a couple of screws in. We actually got these in their raw form. They were just raw aluminum. I sent them to the powder coater thinking they didn't need any trimming. But guess what? They need trimming. They need trimming right back here where this edge, this back edge, meets the actual sill plate of the driver's side door or driver's side body. And they need trimming down in here where you just physically run out of room for that trim to go down in. It hits the metal and it won't go down. So it has to be trimmed from about here to about here, straight. So now you've got this nice black powder coat that you've had put on these trim plates, and you have to cut. And it wasn't easy. I had to use an angle grinder and a death wheel. And what I did is I beveled them at a back angle so that when I went and cleaned it up, and I cleaned it up with a sharp utility knife just along the edge so that the raw aluminum edge was not going to be visible. It actually drops down into the carpeting so it hides it. On the bottom anyway. On the back here, what I did is I carefully filed the back edge of it, and then I went ahead and I touched it up with a black marker, a black Sharpie. And it worked okay. The other thing that I had trouble finding were black screws. All the black trim screws anyways that you can find for these types of screws, these oval head screws, are a number 8 screw, which is, you know, the same size that Factory 5 uses for all of the washer head trim screws that are for the dash and what have you. The problem is even without the washered head, in these spots right here, the head is too big. It won't nest into the relief that is in the actual trim plate itself. Then the screw ends up being too big for the area that you're drilling the hole in the fiberglass as well. And so it just turns into a complete nightmare. So we ended up using, these are number 6 oval head stainless steel screws that come with the actual sill plates or trim plates. And we drilled a 7/64 hole, I think it was, or 7/32. I'll have to look. But we drilled those holes and we wanted to get them as close to center of this fiberglass edge as we could so as not to split the fiberglass, you know, make a crack, fracture it, and have the trim plate not sit nice and flush. So we got all those in. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this door in. I may show you how I do the other one on the other side since I still have the driver's side door left to do. And then we'll jump in and we'll do the access cover for the driver's foot box, and we'll do the access covers for the fuel pump and the fuel level sender. I have quickly vacuumed out the inside of the car because, of course, when you drill, the fiberglass dust gets kind of everywhere. So I got all that vacuumed out. I still have to vacuum out the inside of the foot box, but I've got the door back on. The trick, so you don't have to readjust your door, is pulling the pins or the bolts that hold the hinge to the two halves of the hinge together. And there are bushings in there, so don't lose the bushings. But I pulled those pins out and then just pulled the door out. Of course, I had to take the screws out of the check strap first, and then the door came right off, and that gave me access to the entire area here. And you can see how you're not going to have enough access to get in here and get this thing to kind of get in, to fit it, to trim it, to get it screwed in, you know, and all that stuff. So the doors really have to come off, or this has to be pre-fit before the doors go on. So I mean, I'd prefer never to do these again. I think the solution that Factory 5 has with the vinyl or the rubber edge trim works just fine. But, you know, because everybody else has this, you know, a lot of people are compelled to buy everything that they see someone else has used on their build. So we've got this side in. I'm going to go and start on the other side. And then I'll probably bring you back once I get to the same stage I was at with this one when we started the video. These are the two areas right here that I have to trim. So right here on the back side of this, and then from about here to here. So if I pull this out and turn it over, you'll see that I had to trim all that out right there, and I had to trim that right there, and that is because this area of the carpeting is flush with the body right here. And there's no way that that trim is going to fit there the way it's designed. And it will not fit in between the actual panel and the body. So, like I said, I don't have the luxury of having any instructions that came with this trim kit. So I can't speak to whether they come with them or not. Let's just say, like with a lot of things from Factory 5, I'll believe this could be better. but then again, I don't see the need for it. Factory 5 already gives you something to finish off that edge, and it works just fine. So we're installing them. The car owner, you know, this is something he bought. It's something he wanted. He thought that it would make that edge look nicer. And honestly, once they're in, they look nice, but it takes an awful lot of work for something that's just supposed to, you know, screw in place. Before somebody asks in the comments, I earlier said that I was using either a 7/32 or a 7/64 bit. It's actually a 7/64 bit to pre-drill for those number 6 stainless steel oval head screws. When I'm using a number 4, which is what I use for the roll bar trims, I believe that is a, let me look that up. Let's see over here. So I think I got the drill bits right here in the drawer. Those are a 3/32. So when I'm drilling for the number 4 stainless steel oval head screws that I use for the roll bar trim rings that Factory 5 provides, because if you remember, I don't use the hardware they provide, those through bolts and nuts. That's the size bit I use for those. So let me finish that up, and I'll bring you guys back, and then we'll move on to the access covers in the back of the car and in the front of the car. There you go, all mounted. I still gotta clean this up. I gotta vacuum. Put the door back on, of course. But done for the most part. You can see, now that this is all in, you can see how flat this ends up being with the edge of the carpeting. So there's no way this thing's gonna fit in there without some trimming. Had I known that before I put them to powder coat, I would have probably temporarily installed the sill plates or the sill pieces from Factory 5 and then trim these before I had them powder coated. But, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Let me get the door put back on. Door is back on. You guys all saw the trim piece installed. Door shuts just like it did. Still got to install the check strap, but I'm going to call this part of the project done. I'm going to jump in the trunk, and I'm going to get the cover plates put on for the fuel pump and the fuel sending unit. When it comes to installing these covers, what I like to do is run some, it doesn't matter what the width is, but it has to be like bigger than 1 inch width, masking tape on the very edge of the opening on each side. Now keep in mind it's oval shaped at the ends, but if you run your tape in a rectangle and it's straight, you can then lay your cover over the top of it and evenly space it with the margins of the tape, and that'll give you a good place to drill the end 2 holes or screws or threaded inserts or whatever you're going to use to fasten down your cover plates. Once you get those 2 in place, you can actually pull the tape off. I choose to leave it on because with all those chips that are going to be coming up here and they're going to be hot, they like to melt themselves to the inside of the carpeting. And so if you can keep the tape in there while you get all your holes drilled, then you can take your tape and kind of fold it in on itself, and hopefully the adhesive will catch most of the metal chips. Then go ahead, position your covers, and then fasten them in. In this case, we were using pop rivets for the final time. Now, if you ever need to take these off, just drill out, what are there, 8 pop rivets, pull it off. You can change a fuel pump, you can change your sending unit, whatever, and it's not a big deal. I have installed them with threaded inserts in the past, but you know what? In Slytherin, where I have the threaded inserts, I've never had to pull off those covers for anything. And the fuel pump that's in Slytherin's been in there for what, 10, 12 years? I just started using rivets to install these in the last couple of cars that we did. I think maybe Michael's was the first one that we just started doing rivets instead of threaded inserts and machine screws. But it just works out. If you want to install them with something that you can take off readily, that's fine too. We're just trying to keep things as simple as we possibly can around the shop. I've just learned that these are places you're not going to have to get into very often. Now, I did run into a little snafu with the cover for the driver's side footbox. So I'm going to probably push that till tomorrow. But what I did get started on is rerouting our lines to our steering, our power steering valve, the Heights valve that we've got installed. Now, up until now, we haven't run any of those lines, the power steering lines, through the Heights valve. We've just had them run directly from the power steering pump down to the rack. If you remember, this was something the car owner kind of sprung on me when we took the car to paint. I did get the Heights valve mounted, but I never got the lines run. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get those lines disconnected, get the fluid drained out of the system, and then get ready to install the Heights valve in line with the power steering pump in the rack, because I need to get those hoses ordered up. Today is Sunday, and I need to get the hoses ordered up from Jason tomorrow so that he can have those lines ready for me hopefully Tuesday, and I can get them installed later this week. Not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but up in here, oh, there it is. I've got the GPS antenna for our speedometer just stuck to the top of the chassis right there. I've got the wire routed over the 3/4 inch tube and into the back to the speedometer, and that's going to keep it out of harm's way. But if the gauge or the sensor ever need to be replaced, they're easy to get to. Where if you run that wire all the way over to the passenger side and put it over on top of the metal over there, it can be a little bit tedious, let's say, to unthread that wire all the way back to this side and then, you know, get it disconnected and replace it if you ever had to in the future. So I like to keep it really close to where the speedometer is, but tuck it up out of the way so it's not going to, you know, be in any way later on as you start, you know, getting some use out of the car. Also, we've got the hoses that I picked up for the power steering for our Heights valve. You guys will see that in probably next week's video. I have already gone to the trouble of draining the system, and I've got the fluid, which we may or may not reuse. I've got some more Honda fluid here, and I may just use new. But I used brand new clean cups to recover the existing power steering fluid, so we could, by all accounts, reuse it. So I went to the hose shop yesterday. I had the 2 hoses here made, and those will go into our Heights valve and basically just kind of intercept the lines in between the power steering pump and the rack so that we can dial in our pressure a little bit better. But like I said, you guys will see that probably in next week's video. So the last thing I have to do today is to get that cover on the footbox. And I mentioned that I ran into a little snafu. I didn't check, and my powder coat guys are really good, but you know, stuff slips by from time to time. I didn't notice when I originally got the parts back because everything had been in shrink wrap since I brought it back here to the shop. I generally don't pull each, you know, piece up, you know, the shrink wrap off and check them because I've never had an issue. Well, this time we had an issue. There was like a crease where it looked like either while it was in the oven or after it had just come out of the oven and something was either placed on top of the cover or the cover was placed on top of something, it made a gouge or a nick in the powder coating, and it was right in the center of it, and there was no way that you were gonna, you know, like kind of get around it. So what I had to end up doing was strip the powder coat off of the surface of the cover, and you can see here, I stripped it down, I sanded it smooth, and I've got about 4 coats of what is a epoxy appliance paint. So I picked this up at the home center, and I like the way this stuff sprays because it you can put it on in really thin coats and build it up in a few layers and really get a nice finish. I do like using the engine enamel as well, but I tried this first because I've had good luck with it, and the cover came out really nice. It's a dead-on match for the powder coat color that we had on there already. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get that cover mounted, and I'll show you what it looks like. I quickly wanted to show this before I put the cover on, just to show you exactly how I make sure that all my holes are in the right spot. So you really don't want to pre-drill these holes without the body in place on the car, because what you'll find is that you end up with holes, you know, like back in here, where you physically can't get to them from the top. I mean, you're not going to get in there to drill, and you're not going to get in there to get a rivet gun in. But you can get to the hole right here, and you can get to these holes right here. So always make sure that you wait until you get your body in place, or pre-fit your body and drill your holes and get everything set up then. But what I like to do is put masking tape around this, just like I described in the trunk for the access covers there, around the edges. And then you go ahead and you place your panel where it's going to sit, and then draw around the outside with a fine tip marker, and that'll tell you exactly how much margin you have and how to space your holes in from the edge of the panel, and what your spacing in between each of those holes should be. And then once you get that, then peel off your tape. Obviously you already have your holes drilled, and then go ahead and put your panel in for the final time. Now, one last thing on the panel, I did, because we went to the effort of insulating all of the panels, we do have some insulation on the back of the panel, and it's cut out in the area so it will drop right down in place and not have any interference with the actual heat and sound mat itself. So let me get this in place, I'll bring it back, and I'll show you what it looks like. There you go, all finished up, covers in place, all sealed off. Now, we could have put this in with threaded inserts and machine screws, and we've done that in the past. But as I said, on the cover plates in the trunk, we just don't find that we're needing to get in there all that often. And so if you do need to get in there, then you just simply drill out a couple of rivets, pull the panel off, and away you go. Now, this is not put in with silicone sealant. It is just the pop rivets in this case. So I think we can all agree this turned out really nice. The one thing that we haven't really touched on is our engine cover. Now, we had this painted by Jeff Miller when he did the paint and body on the car. He did the coil covers, of course, which people like to call the valve covers, but they are covering the coils in this sense. So, and he also did the engine cover, but we split the engine cover in two, meaning the black portion, what used to be the gray portion of the engine cover. We split those in two. We gave Jeff the part we wanted painted blue, and he did that, and of course he did the coil covers as well. We replaced all of the hardware. There wasn't essentially hardware, it was actually tabs that had been heat fused or melted on the back side of the engine cover to put the two halves together. And so where we could, we've replaced what was faux hardware, which looked like kind of black Allen head type cap screws. We've replaced those with actual stainless steel button heads in all of the areas we can. And then there's two locations underneath the cover here. We couldn't do that. We went ahead and we remelted those heat fused pins that are going through one cover into the other. And we did the same thing for the three that are across the back here. So it's nice and secure, but the stainless button heads really give it a little bit of pizzazz. And I like the way it came out. Now, we do need to kind of detail the engine. It's dusty just from being here in the shop and being over at Jeff's shop. You know, the day that the body goes back on, we generate a lot of dust, you know, with drilling out the holes for the wipers and what have you. We get dust all over everything. So even though Jeff, you know, blows the car off before we load it into the trailer, there's still an awful lot of dust that travels back here to our shop with us when he's all done with the body work. So we'll go in, and before we deliver the car, everything will be nice and clean and detailed. But I hadn't shown the engine cover all put back together, painted and all that, so I wanted to do that here as well. I think that's going to do it for this one. I think in the next one, we may just concentrate on getting the Heights valve installed, and I'll show you exactly how the plumbing for that goes in, because I thought I knew how that plumbing went in there the first time I put one in these, which I put in Slytherin, and it wasn't until the next one that I did that I found out indeed I had plumbed it backwards. Now, it still works, it just doesn't work as well. So we want to make sure that we get the lines going in and out of there the right way so that the owner can dial in the exact pressure he wants for the power steering. So look for that in next week's video. Until then, if you are enjoying the content here, as always, do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.